We live.
All right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the internet. Welcome to our monthly live stream series here from the Museum of Glass in Tacoma, Washington. I always forget to do this up front, so I'm remembering now, but we'd like to thank our sponsors that make this possible. That is, of course, the Museum of Glass, Tacoma Creates, KNKX, Ted Brown Music, financial consultant Rick Gray, Ed Jones, financial consultant Rick Gray, and Titus Will Cars. Thanks for making this possible, and thank you for participating and making this possible as well. I think we're going on 6 years here of doing this series once a month at the Museum of Glass. All of the content that we've done is free and open to the public. You can just sign in, not even sign in, just go to YouTube and check it out. And there's multiple performances and interviews and concerts and lots of great material. So anyways, happy to be here today. We have again with us the wonderful musician and composer and a world traveler, the wonderful Ollie Jackson. Ollie, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. I love the enthusiasm and the vigor, the zest. It's very impressive.
I should say we had I'm still jet lagged from being away for quite some time, and then we just hit the ground running with the tour, and we were in Portland last night late and then drove home late. And
yes, we did make it. We could not have made it.
Yeah.
Some people were very, honorary.
Yes.
With their, no, we're almost here. We're almost there.
We're here. So, if you haven't caught any of these interviews before, I think this is maybe the fourth or fifth one we've done with Ollie, and we've covered a lot of different topics and subjects regarding music and the music business and life in music and lots of these different things. So, if you have questions for myself or Ollie, feel free to put them in the comments, and we'll do our best to get to them either in real time or after the session ends. So, let's see. Where to begin? We had a conversation yesterday, and there's no particular direction in this interview right now, by the way. But we were talking about drummer Billy Hart yesterday, and you said you spent a lot of time with Billy Hart learning from him. Can you talk a little bit about your experience and time with Billy?
I could give you my first impression when I saw Billy Hart play, and it was just unbelievable energy. He played with such passion and energy, it uplifted the bandstand. So this has nothing to do with what he's actually playing, just how he plays. A lot of energy, and I'm talking this would have been in the early 90s, so like 90, 91. I had the opportunity to see him play many times with Tom Harrell's band, and then some with Buster Williams, and then some with Marcus Belgrave. Different ensembles, but amazing energy. And we've got to be pretty close over the years, and he's someone that's always optimistic, someone that's always encouraging, especially for younger musicians, and definitely is open to many perspectives. Lifelong learner. So if we learn nothing else from Billy Hart, that is a huge element of who he is, and his musicianship is embracing all of what's going on. I mean, it doesn't mean you have to use it all, but he's open to it all.
You mentioned something else I thought was interesting in terms of when he was in town or wherever he was, you would go watch him play constantly and just to watch and see how he played. And I guess, obviously to learn, did you take any lessons with him directly, or those were the lessons in just watching him play and observing how he dealt with situations musically?
The best lessons are always watching someone. The thing is, do you understand what you're watching or what you're hearing? That's like another layer of understanding of watching and learning. But those were the lessons. Not just with him, but any master musician. I mean, this whole era of people paying for lessons, or I'm going to get hey man, can I take a lesson with you? It's like, man, you wouldn't just go up to any high level master musician and just ask them cold like for a lesson. They'd look at you like you crazy. So you'd have to get their trust or demonstrate a certain level of seriousness, or someone would vouch for you. So this just transactional thing of getting a lesson, because lessons are personal and each human is different. Everyone's learning style or whatever. And some people weren't prone on giving secrets of playing. Like, so back in the day, if you wanted to learn something from someone, you had to go to their gig and check them out. There was no internet, there was no YouTube, there was nothing recorded. You had to go check them out, and seeing them in person is a much different experience than a recording or anything like that. It's in the moment.
Well, I'm curious, because you've mentioned before you're a third-generation musician, and for those that haven't caught the earlier interviews, can you talk about your musical lineage really quickly?
I grew up in a professional musical household. My father was Ali Jackson Sr., bassist and educator, and polymath. Well versed in world history, geopolitics, hieroglyphics, study of ancient Kemet, practiced Tai Chi, gave us an education on world spirituality. He grew up as a universal humanist, which we have to get into now. People are always sensitive about religion or worship, or how can I say, connection to higher being, or belief of there's something beyond this plane or this construct. So he was extremely connected, I'd like to say, to all that is. And my mother grew up as a classical piano prodigy, and great educator, herbalist, yogi, like before it was popular. So we talking, I was a kid, so almost 50 years ago. So I just grew up in that kind of environment. So very progressive, let's just say that. They didn't believe in necessarily public education in the regular kind. Not that it's bad, but my father believed in you go at whatever pace you can go at. Not like, oh, well, you're in first grade, you should learn this. It's like, man, if you can do calculus and you're 7 years old, then you do calculus. It's not like regimented. It's just open. So that provided me a huge platform to just assimilate information. And I think music is just like anything, it's just a lot of other, you have many variables converging in one space to be able to be a good musician, I would say. Definitely an ancestral music-based musician, or people call it jazz, or music that's, folk music with a certain level of, or deep language, or vocabulary, musical vocabulary. So I just ascended quickly in that construct, or in that format of music, starting with drums and then playing piano at an early age. So that's it. I just exposed to a lot of different styles of music, played with a lot of different people, and was playing professionally in this context of being paid to do gigs at like 8 years old. So that's just my journey. So I just was in it. I didn't think about it. It's not like, oh, people go like, oh, that's amazing. It's like, man, that's just the environment that I came up in. And, I embraced it for the most part.
So because of that, you mentioned like a lot of the other drummers, like they wouldn't just teach you, but because of your father and the family that you came from, do you feel that opened a lot of doors for you to be able to be taught by some of these musicians, or kind of like an introduction before an introduction?
Yeah, there were great musicians in and out of our home. I was always sitting in a rehearsal or a gig, or being drug along to a gig. Like your kids now, they're just at the gig. So I was just in the environment. So also the cultural norms were different then. Children were to be seen and not heard. So it wasn't like, you weren't making a ruckus. You weren't, if somebody told you something, you did it. It wasn't like a conversation. Well, I don't feel like it. It was like, look, man, you better do this or else. That's just how it was. So as far as getting lessons, I was just very attentive. I would say that as a kid, I would always be aware and attentive to what was going on. So I picked up a lot of things by just watching. I guess that's a skill or a trait. That's just how I am.
And so with that, we talked a little bit yesterday about drummers that also play piano. We were talking about Jack DeJohnette. I think you mentioned Joe Chambers. Your mother played piano. Did she teach you piano?
Yeah, my mother taught me like old school, like classical piano lessons. Like Kinen and I just learned like piano, like fingerings and basic theory, reading. She taught me how to read. So I was reading music probably 4 or 5 years old at the same time I was reading words. So it was all very familiar only because that's what you did. Like, so some people, that wasn't their experience. So it's just different. So some people were like, man, wow, you could do this. I knew my 2/5 progressions, 2/5 1 progressions. My father had a system that he would teach us called the color wheel. And so the color wheel is based on the cycle of fourths, and then the opposite is the cycle of fifths. Each pitch pertained to a certain astrological sign and a color, so it was all like interconnected. But I learned in this system of playing like the cycle of fourths. So I basically learned all of my chord changes, major, minor, dominant chords. Not really alterations, but major, minor, dominant, augmented, diminished chords at like 5, 6 years old. I could play them all, but I didn't know what they meant. But once you can play them, then assigning what they mean or the value is much easier. So I kind of learned that way. Some people was like, so it wasn't so in the theory, it was like more in the context of doing. Can you do it? Then we can explain what it means later.
So the only person that I've heard talk about this is you. You've mentioned this before, which if someone wanted to investigate what you're talking about right now, have you seen that in print anywhere, or is that just something? Where did your father learn that?
It was something he developed. My father, he came up in Detroit in the 40s, 50s. Went to New York. He was very close with Tad Dameron, Boo Boo Turner, progenitors and collaborators in the bebop language. So for him, all of this, and then he had like different nomenclatures based on like an etudes, giving the building blocks of like bebop language or material. He's close with Barry Harris, Tommy Flanagan, Hank Jones, the whole Jones family. They're all from the same Sir Roland Hanna. So it's something that he came up with and he developed, and that was his teaching tool, like for people getting into the music.
Is any of that written down anywhere or no?
It is. I do. I have some of his manuscripts. It's something that could be packaged and sold and published, but I think it's more about the way that you teach it or how it's applied. Like, information is just information. Sometimes it's the context. If you take things out of a context, then it's just like, what is it? It's like notes on a page. Like sometimes we get into this, because it's written down, somebody can play it, but there's a lot that's not in the written note. Like it's the pitch, but, you could have its, how could you say, the expression or how the note is expressed, but sometimes it could be leaning back, or there's so many different markings or articulations that you could have for one particular note, and then the era of the note, when, like, how do you want the note played? Do you want the note played like, it could be quarter notes? You want to play like Sweet Edison played quarter notes, or do you want to play like Louis Armstrong played quarter notes? Or do you want to, like Freddie Hubbard? I just picked 3 trumpet players, but they all would feel the note different. And then, like, how do you play it? Like, and what's your interpretation? So there's so much in music that's not documented, or, like, let's say, that you can write down. I mean, you could write it down and explain it. It'd be more explanation than there would be notes on the page. So that's the kind of mystical aspect of music. There's a lot behind the notes.
Going back to my question earlier about drummers that played piano, and a lot of musicians have said, a lot of the great musicians played, maybe their primary instrument is a saxophone or trumpet, but they've also played piano. Miles Davis, Dizzy Gillespie, Clifford Brown, John Coltrane to some extent, Eric Dolphy. In terms of drummers that are revered as great drummers, do most of them that you've interacted with, do most of them play some sort of chordal instrument, either guitar or piano, or are some of them just strictly drummers and concern themselves with that?
That's different for different people, and the level of playing. Like, I know firsthand, I studied with Joe Chambers, so he played great piano. Like, he played better piano than some people that call themselves piano players. Tony Williams played some piano. I heard. I didn't have the chance to meet him. Max Roach would always, reference piano, or it's a connector instrument.
Did he play piano too?
I don't know how much, because I wasn't around him when he, like in a setting where he was playing piano. I'm sure he was very familiar with piano. I mean, anyone that writes arrangements. I know Tito Puente played some piano. I mean, obviously Jack DeJohnette. I've spent some time with him, so I'm probably missing some people out there. I mean, anyone that composes or writes, they have to have some knowledge of the piano. Now, your level of dexterity and facility on the instrument, or proficiency on the instrument, that's different for different people. However, you got to be knowledgeable, like just with harmony,
So, you've studied with a lot of tremendously talented drummers over the years, and had access to their concepts and, for lack of a better term, technique, or whatever. Are there any drummers that you would have liked to have been around their sphere of influence but didn't get a chance to hang out with them?
I mean, one is, I was just listening to him the other day, Frankie Dunlop, and we listened to an interview, and I just the timing, me being in New York, and I think he was having some health challenges, but I didn't get a chance to spend any time with him. I wish I had. Ben Riley, I spent some time with, but I wish I could have spent more. And it's crazy, because people always say this. It's like when people are living, you kind of just take it for granted, and then when they either get sick or they're gone, then it's like, dang, I wish I spent more time with this person, or I didn't know all of this stuff about them. And it happens with younger musicians, and it's also the way the world has kind of shifted. So the sense of community is just not the same. It's dispersed. It's a little bit all over the place now. It's not the same. I mean, we're hoping to change that, having a place where people can connect and vibe with each other. Like now, it's just a different time in the world. So that sense of community and closeness. Man, I was in New York at some say it's like the last of a special era where you had so many generations of people still living in New York. So I had a chance to at least see a lot of people. Art Blakey's another one that I wish I could have spent some time with. I was too, he was getting older. I wasn't quite old enough to get around him. But I did see him play live when I was, maybe I was like 7 or 8 with my father. So my father knew Buhena. So my father knew all of the guys. I was just a kid, like, and I didn't know who they were really. I didn't know their significance not until I got older and you start realizing who these people were. But you know, those are a couple. I mean, there's many others. Shoot, wish I could have met Baby Dodds or hung out with Papa Joe Jones, and which I met his son. So Joe Jones Jr. I had a chance to spend some time with him. Philly Joe Jones. There's so many guys that and sometimes it's just hanging with them because they're just colorful people. Most musicians are very, extremely intelligent. To play the music, you can't be a dummy. That's just a fact, and you got to have some personality. So it's a balance of things.
So in regards to, I'm curious. I mean, we can go around multiple because I know there's so many. But you spent time with Max Roach. You spent time with Elvin Jones. You spent time with Art Taylor. Yes? No? I can't remember.
I used to go to his rehearsals. Yeah. I'd go to his gigs. So I mean, sometimes you can't be. It's hard to be like close with everyone. Or be tight with everyone. However, like everyone has something to say, especially at that level. It's like you comparing apples and oranges and grapes and blueberries. Like they all have a place.
No, I get it, and that's where I'm kind of going with this question. So let's say, for example, what is something like, or could you even put your finger on something that you learned from being around Elvin Jones that you found helpful for your playing?
Just the relationship between life. And your interpretation of life and what you value, and have nothing to do with anything technical on the instrument. And Max Roach, I mean, there's so many things, nothing technical, more about concepts or approach to playing.
So for example, what would be like a concept that you picked up from Max Roach?
Well, just how he would take rudiments. This is one thing I'll give you, for example. He'd take a rudiment and invert a rudiment like a paradiddle, like Un Poco Loco, which is a very iconic groove that he played with Bud Powell. What was that, in the 40s? Late 40s? But it's a paradiddle that's inverted, like did it, 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 did it. So just taking something that's standard like that and then turning it into something else.
So to paraphrase, like complete command of rudiments where you can.
Yeah, but or just the mind and the concept to be able to take that and then apply it in a different way, like to use something and then repurpose it in a different way, or turn it around, flip it upside down. Art Taylor, just as a band leader, like how he lead the band, his conviction about it. That just one aspect. Billy Higgins, just his spirit, like he'd light up a bandstand, like just that, like his energy, and his cymbal beat really wide. So, like having a wide cymbal beat basically allows everyone to fit inside of it. It's like a big tent. Like, so instead of having like an umbrella, you got a tent. So I'm just picking like one thing.
What about Tony Williams?
I mean, amazing ability and talent and approach to playing the instrument. I mean, I was hugely influenced by his playing. Especially as a younger cat, like in my teenage years.
But at this time, when you started being aware of these other drummers and more concepts, is it fair to assume you already had your fundamentals? Like all of that stuff was already taken care of at that point.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, like facility and fundamentals, like, and people get this twisted. Your technique is, or I'm trying to phrase this in the right way. Your technique is all encompassing of all of the things that that would be in that category. Most people say technique, they just think of velocity. And you could play fast. But yeah, can you play fast under control? Can you play fast quietly with intensity? Can you play fast in a medium dynamic? Can you play fast at a loud dynamic? Do you have independence? Like on a drum kit, like, do you have command of your rudiments? What is your sound? What kind of sound do you produce on the instrument? Is it balanced? Is like your bass drum way louder than your right hand, or your, like creating balance in the drum kit? Then it's how many grooves do you know? What are the grooves? So what is the quality of the groove you play? What is your feel? Like, you could play in metronomic time, but it doesn't feel good. What's your ability to sync up with a bass player? What's your ability to be able to hear the harmony of a tune and guide the tune and create an arrangement and guide the ensemble? Like, there's all aspects of like the sum of your, I guess, your complete ability. So for a drum kit, when people just say technique, it's just so general. There's a lot more things that require technique. Like I always say, I'm more impressed with somebody that's very simple, that has really good sound and a great feel, than I am with a bunch of stuff that they, technical or velocity or chops or flurries, as one might say.
Yeah, if Greg is watching, yes, Flurious. That's the tune, the contrafact for Greg Hutchinson, Flurious. Well, so when you were getting started with drums, who was one of your first teachers to teach you rudiments and that kind of stuff? Where did you learn that? Was that self-taught, or did you have someone guide you in terms of what they thought or deemed proper technique for you?
Man, what's his name? No, I think it was like Larry Birdsong. He was a drummer in town who gave me like basic, like rudiment lessons when I was like really young, 4, 5 years old. And then George Goldsmith, great Detroit drummer, gave me lessons. Danny Spencer, I took lessons with him. Supreme Master Roy Brooks, took lessons with him. These are all in Detroit, so we're talking, I was under 12 years old during most of these.
Was this all from the perspective of like drum set, or did you also study like classical percussion too?
Those were drum set. Mr. Birdsong was more like rudimentary, and then like at 8 years old, 9 years old, I started playing in a drum corps. So it was a lot of rudiments. So that was under the tutelage of the brother of the great Kenny Cox, pianist and composer, his brother David Cox, who was the founder and director of the Jazzmen Drum Corps in Detroit. So, I mean, that was completely rudiments. And then by the time, also, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Mr. Jose Taylor, who was my middle school band director, who, man, he was a genius. Great saxophonist, played amazing piano, played piano damn near equally as well as he played saxophone, but played with some of everybody, and was a huge inspiration, especially after my father passed. So he kind of like took the torch and kept moving us forward, myself and my brother who played trumpet. But he kept me super focused and challenged. So what happens if you have an ability to be like good, things come easy, then you're not challenged. So he definitely challenged me to keep going, like to pushing.
So you said middle school. So how old were you when your father passed away?
12. Yeah. So that, for kids, that can be very traumatic. And it was, like, looking back, but, as a kid, you don't have a reference. So you just, you just survive. You push through.
So in middle school, well, you said you started gigging when you were 8 years old or younger. Yeah. In middle school, you were playing, obviously your brother played trumpet. Do you have other folks that you were playing with musically at that time, putting groups together and doing stuff?
Oh, yeah. We had all kind of different combos and played, you know, anything from luncheons to at other schools, festivals, different gigs. You know, you always have like a spring concert, a winter concert, like all of those things. But we played outside of that, you know.
Were you doing like normally if kids sign up for music programs in school, they have like wind ensemble, maybe there's a choir, maybe orchestra, maybe jazz band. So were you doing all these types of things, or
That's more in high school. In middle school, you didn't have that. There was like choir, and then it was a jazz orchestra, and then there was like a like the a combo, which was, if you got into that, which was pretty rare because there was a lot of talented, you know, kids. I mean, the size of the combo would change. Maybe you might have like 3 or 4 winds, rhythm section, but it would vary. But if you were playing with that, I mean, that was, you know, that was select. You were asked. So,
and you said your teacher was the one running this and kind of challenging you guys. So what kind of material were you playing in middle school?
All like bebop stuff, jazz, jazz canon. You know, Duke Ellington. What did we play? I'm trying to think. Like Broadway. There Will Never Be Another You. Like just standards. All blues. Standards.
So aside from you and your brother, were there other kids coming up at the same time that went on to be musicians as well? Sounds like there was good upbringing, and I know Detroit has and maybe had a very long and strong tradition of jazz and great musicians.
Yes, I mean my brother and I are primary ones. There was a kid, Lawrence Patrick, who didn't become a professional, but a lot of these people went on to be like really amazing in their fields of study. Like one guy is one of my middle school classmates. He went on to like be, I don't even know if he works in like one of the 3-letter agencies, but lived in China. Like people have gone on and do all kind of different things. But being a musician, bro, that's like 1% of the 1%. I'm probably the one that's kind of still in there. I'm still in there.
Your brother no longer plays?
Not professionally, not like in the street, but he plays in his home regularly, or I mean he could go play. For him, the lifestyle of being a professional musician was not so attractive.
Well, now, you still spend a lot of time in Detroit, and I'm curious, with your father and your family growing up there and elsewhere, the scene back then in terms of the pool of musicians, the quality of musicians and gigs versus the city now and what it's like. What's, in your opinion, in your experience, what are some of the main differences?
I mean, it doesn't exclusively apply to Detroit. I mean, you could put it all over the world. It's just that the cultural component around the music and the community around the music is just, it has eroded for many reasons, variables. I mean, some technology, because it becomes a distraction. Music is a discipline and focus, and it's community and environment based. So if you don't have the same environments, that's changed. The cultural dynamic has changed. So that's another element where people are just soft. You know, you say something to somebody and they're immediately offended. So there's no, and it's not even personal. It's like, hey man, you're messing up. Well, I can't believe you talked to me. It's like, man, you're messing up the part, man. That's an element. The quality of the educators, like people that don't know, they get a job and they're just there. They're not really vested. They don't have a passion about it. They never achieved any serious level. So those are 3 no-brainer elements of why it's difficult. Now, I will say, on a positive note, there are always people that are serious, and even with all the distractions and hard to find, or for them to find solid sources or undeniable sources, they're still out here. There's a few young guys in Detroit right now that I'm just like, man, I feel bad for them because it's just, people been playing $100 gigs for like 80 years now. It's like, come on, man. But the inflation has gone up, I don't know, 100 times. So that's another element. Why would you invest all this time to be good at something and there's no reward? Definitely not economically. So then it becomes like, can you survive?
I'm curious your opinion. I have my own opinions about this. I mean, the words, everyone talks about, particularly what you see this a lot with the jazz, in the jazz world community. Everyone says community. Everyone says it nowadays. For me, I remember in the late 80s and the 90s coming up with the older musicians, no one said the word, but you felt it. It was very much like a tangible thing. It felt like you were part of something. There was a lot of stuff going on. Now everybody says it, but it doesn't, even if there's a bunch of people around, it doesn't feel that way. That's my opinion. Do you feel that that's the same in your experience?
I just don't feel like there is a community. There is a community, but maybe it's virtual. I don't know. A virtual community, it's still a community. It just depends on your perception. I'm not here to judge like how someone perceives it, but the community that I know or that I've experienced is not anywhere close. Like where elder could just show up at your gig and you just be terrified, or somebody that knows what you're playing. It's not a mystery. Like now you can just cheat. People play whatever they want. No one's saying anything. Like you could mess up changes and bro, man, if you messed up some chord changes or weren't playing the melody right, man, you would just get scolded or beat up, or you go back, man, they'd be ready to cut you.
Well, you're almost, how old are you now? You're not that much older than me. I'm 47, so where are you on the spectrum here?
I'm a little bit older.
Yeah. So growing up, again, when I was, teenager, again, I the same thing. I remember the elders, the older musicians, and there was, I don't want to say like not gatekeeping, but just like keeping the bar at a certain standard, and they would let you know. And perhaps, and again, I'm interested in your opinions, maybe people are just in the current climate that we find ourselves, they're afraid to say anything because they don't want to be called as like, oh, you're just being too harsh. Or they don't want to be
but by
chastised.
Yeah, no one wants to be chastised. Did I want to be? No, but that made me better. Yeah. I'm not gonna say if.
No, I mean the older generation of musicians, they're afraid to say something because they don't want to get in trouble.
I don't even think it's that. They just have given up. They just tired. I can see it. I'm not even old yet, and I feel like, man, it's not even worth saying anything because you just looked at it as like, man, you old fool. You don't know anything. Like, that's just the way it's perceived. They're not looking deeper because they don't have to. Like, if you're not punished, hey, work a job, fly an airplane, right? And you mess up and make the calculations, or the plane has to just emergency land or whatever, bro, you're fired. Work in a high-end restaurant and you mess up a client's order and whatever, first time, you're fired. Be a doctor or a surgeon and you mess up an operation and surgery and it was your fault. Guess what? You lost your license. You could get up on a bandstand, not know the tunes, look like a clown, act a fool, mess up the changes, play a long 40-chord solo, and nothing happens to you. They were like, oh, he's cool. I don't get it. Be a professional athlete. You don't produce, guess what? You're on the bench, and then you're on the bench, and then guess what? If you're on the bench too long, you don't have a job. Your contract runs out, and you'll be working at Metropolitan Market. If you're lucky.
So from your perspective and your experience and
Like the
Where
community.
where do you see this going? Where do you see this heading?
Man, it might have to crash and burn before it comes back. Because if those that know aren't respected to say whatever they say, and this is last I checked, this was America, land of the free, freedom of speech. You can say whatever the heck you want to say. Now, it doesn't mean people are gonna like it, but I'd much rather listen to from somebody that's got receipts and skin in the game to say whatever. Like, what have you done? It's like the video that we're referencing. Some guy just talking about what people are doing. It's like, bro, you've not played any gigs. You've done nothing, but now you're the voice of what new terminologies? Like, get out of here. So if you could say that, that's more criminal than somebody saying this person is sad when they're actually sad based on some real metrics or some real perspective. So if the voices of wisdom are neutered, I mean, we just lost. It's on a human level.
I have lots of other questions, but I also want to make sure if people have questions online that we get those answered. If you have questions for Ollie or myself, please let us know. Do we have any questions in the comments? Nope. If you have questions, feel free to let us know. Happy to answer them. Question for you in terms of going back to the scene, community, and education. I mean, we've talked about this as well. And to paraphrase and put it succinctly, you feel that, and correct me if I'm wrong, that institutionalizing jazz education has watered it down and made it not as great as what it was. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, the institutionalization of teaching. Man, jazz is, I almost don't like the word jazz, like the elders, but for not the popular reasons, but the language and the spirit of the music. Is you really can't teach it. You live it. I mean, you could go to school and learn technical, and that's what their school is producing, a bunch of technical players and people that have knowledge or whatever, but they don't feel anything. I don't feel anything when I go to these performances and concerts. Like, can they play an instrument? Yeah. Can they play tunes? Can they execute a bunch of, complicated, material? Yeah. But do I feel anything? Do I go like, man, I want to dance to this? Or, wow, they're really expressing a real thought or is very thoughtful of what they're doing? Not often. And then the real crazy thing is, here we are in a talk. Look at how many people. Is the world interested in these aspects? I think the world is beat down. So from an institutional standpoint, it's just a moneymaker. If I can convince you to send your kid to my program for $60,000 to $100,000 a year, and maybe have a name of somebody that's attached to the program, and the parents don't know, and the students definitely don't know, they're being sold a pipe dream. Like, you really think you're gonna? But no one's working, and anyone that has a big name, if they're at a school teaching, they shouldn't be. They should be playing whatever performances they want to play. So it just shows you that it's upside down.
Not just educationally, but in terms of venues. There's not as many venues that there used to be. And I guess the other question I wanted to ask you before we run out of time is, and we're looking at this and we're talking about it from the lens of the United States, but you've lived in other countries as well. Do you feel that the level of support from the community and education and venues is better in Asia versus Europe versus the United States? Do you see any differences going on between those countries?
There's definitely difference. There are differences in Asia, Europe, with their just cultural identity and their people, and then also their economic, the economic hierarchy of what's valued in their cultures or society, and they're older. So let's just say in France, I lived in France. They appreciate art in general. And the lifestyle of most people is not, you could call it socialist, but people don't need a lot to live a good life, and there's time and space in the culture. So when you have time and space in the culture, you can appreciate things like going to the park or having a 3-hour dinner or like these other aspects of social health, community health. Asia, similar, different appreciation for, their culture and preserving elements of the traditions and the culture in those places. And it's all not always tied to money. It's not, everything is not about like, how can we monetize this? Here, I mean, just look at it. So, yes, will you as a musician, or let's say a professional musician, a working musician, will you earn more money in those places? Not necessarily, but your lifestyle and the appreciation for what you do is higher. It moves up the rank. Like as a ethnic brown, I don't want to put a label because everything has been racialized, black, call it whatever you want, musician that comes from the tradition of my art form, American classic, ancestral music, jazz, whatever, I'm respected and appreciated in a completely different way than I am here and other places all over Europe. People stop me on the street and be like, hey man, let me buy you a drink. Man, I really love the so-and-so work. Like, people are knowledgeable because they have time and they appreciate artistry. If you don't appreciate artistry, how's this afforded? Clubs and venues, so you mentioned that. Clubs and venues here only care about a bottom line. That's it.
You don't find that to be true in clubs in other countries?
Some. But then there's some that just go on the strength of their model is not to get rich. Their model is to exist. And then there's subsidies, and then like you can get into the minutia of how the economics work. However, if it's not about the music, then what is it about? That's just a simple thing. I mean, it's not complicated.
Any questions? Any other questions? I have more questions, but if anyone wants to have any questions, let me know. I'm happy to not monopolize the time here. No questions?
I'm not.
Sir, do you have a question? No question.
Whatever ones aren't broken.
All right. Well, let's talk about. I mean, there's many things we could talk about, many facets of the music business.
Hey, listen, I'm not trying to be. This is not trying to be like. I don't want it to come across like it's doom and gloom. It's just there's so many components that impact other things. Yeah. It's just like kids. Why aren't kids? Let's say, like how they learn is completely different. Like your daughter, for example, she learned Maple Leaf Rag off of apps that people are breaking it down, which is cool in a sense. Yeah. But the way we'd have to learn it is, if you didn't have the sheet music, you'd have to play the recording, rewind it back, play another 4 bars, rewind it back, play another 4 bars, or get the sheet music and go bar by bar, which requires a different level of discipline, I think. It's like playing, like the reps of playing. I said, man, I just sit on the drums and play one groove for like 15 minutes. Just think about 15 minutes doesn't seem long, but if you're playing the same thing for 15 minutes and you're not doing anything else, that level of concentration. So just there's so many distractions. You can't expect a kid to concentrate. I mean, 15 minutes is a long time. I mean, if you get 15 minutes out of a kid now, I mean, you're doing great. For us, it was like an hour or 2 hours. So how could they even be on the same level if they have all these distractions? And I feel like that's a huge piece of it. And so humans are obviously, they've shifted. These other generations, they're different humans. They're just completely different.
I think part of it. You sir, yes. So the question is, do you see any way to make a change in any of these problems with jazz education and presenting jazz, playing jazz? Yeah.
What are the fixes? Yeah, the fixes are actually pretty simple. The people that should run programs or whatever in the institutions, not the ones that are there, the ones that should be doing it. The ones that have knowledge and skin in the game and understand what's required. The other thing is really beyond that, because you could just get rid of the institutions as a whole. You really don't need it in the institution. It's actual opportunities and venues that are curated well with people that know about the music. So if you, especially in America, anytime you put an economic component into it, people will gravitate to it because that's just baked into this system. Anytime there's economic opportunity, you will get people. It's like, why do you go into the hood and all of the brothers, you want to find a good basketball player, go to the local park. They're all there. It's not. And then I love how they programs, like no one in a top Catholic school basketball program or college program, they did not teach these guys how to play basketball. Guaranteed. Now, you could refine elements and tweak things, but they didn't teach them. They worked on that on their own. And I say that with musicians. If there's a standard and a bar, that there's some kind of incentive. Unfortunately, in America, is economic. If you start paying people $350,000 a year, it's like if you're a top soloist, that's what you could make. I guarantee you'd be all kind of people playing their behinds off. Like, what? Oh, yeah, let's just say if there were Jazz at Lincoln Center jobs all over the country in every major city, and you could make $150,000 a year playing music, on how all kind of people would be coming out of the woodwork. And it would raise the quotient of lots of elements around our society. People would actually start listening. It would actually have more value. That's just one thing. I'm just saying that one thing. If there was a venue in Tacoma right now that was only about musicians, it was run by some musicians or a council of people that are respected in the music, and there was a gig there, let's say it could be 5 nights a week, whatever, and it paid decent money, the quality of musicianship and the stuff that would be going on would raise, and the people in the community would gravitate to it organically. Facts. I put whatever resources I have left on that. That's America is all about show me the money.
Other questions? Yes. What would be a musical goal you would like to achieve despite all of the difficulties that you've mentioned?
A place where people could hear the music performed on a high level on a regular basis, all different forms, all the different styles. Jazz orchestra, different, let's say, mixed ensembles, stuff like Max Roach's double quartet, or chamber music with jazz, in a form where this could be heard regularly and people actually engaged and wanting to hear it. People that, and all kind of different creative things, from classic stuff to experimental stuff to definitely a lot of swinging and grooving stuff in all different formats. That's a goal that I'd like to see happen just for the music, not even personally, and for the music. And for me, a goal that I'd like to accomplish is probably just filling out my repertoire of compositions for different ensembles, from solo drum works all the way to orchestral works and all in between. continuing to do that on a high level.
All right, we need to wrap up here for today. Ollie, it's always a pleasure having your insightful comments and words of wisdom.
It's just an experience.
Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for everyone joining us online and those of you here in the audience today. We're going to take a short break and then reconfigure and do a concert here, which will start at 3 o'clock. If you find value in the work that we're doing, and you want to support it, feel free to make a donation online via PayPal or Venmo. The information is at the beginning of this post. And thank you so much. We'll see you shortly.